The scent of dry, heated limestone lingers in your nostrils, a sharp and mineral perfume that has been baking under a relentless sky for thousands of years. It is a smell that belongs only here, where the edge of the fertile valley meets the infinite reach of the Sahara. You feel the weight of the day in your shoulders, a slow and rhythmic ache born from hours of meticulous work. But as the light begins to change, that heaviness transforms into a quiet sort of peace. Your feet, calloused and dusted with a fine layer of pale silt, find purchase on the uneven ground as you step away from the mouth of the workshop. The air, which had been thick and stagnant deep within the rock-cut chambers, now carries a sudden, refreshing chill that prickles against the skin of your forearms. You pull your linen cloak tighter around your frame, feeling the coarse, familiar weave of the fabric against your neck, and you simply breathe. The wind is shifting now, moving with a soft, hushing sound as it pulls the desert sands across the ancient masonry. It sounds like a long, drawn-out exhale, a whisper that seems to carry the voices of the many generations who have walked these same paths before you. You look toward the horizon, where the step pyramid of Djoser rises in its jagged, majestic tiers. The stone, once a brilliant white that would have blinded the eye at midday, has softened into a deep, glowing amber. The long shadows of the evening stretch out across the necropolis like dark fingers, reaching over the mastabas and the hidden shafts that honeycomb the earth beneath your feet. This is Saqqara, a city not for the living, but for those who have transitioned into the eternal. It is a vast, sprawling landscape of memory that has grown layer by layer, century by century, until the very ground you stand upon is composed of the dreams and the dust of the ancestors. As you watch the light fade, you might find yourself settling into a comfortable position, perhaps adjusting your pillows or pulling a warm blanket up to your chin as you prepare for your own period of rest. It is a wonderful thing to find a moment of stillness at the end of a long day, and if you are joining us tonight to find sleep, you are in the right place. Here at the Slumber Archives, we gather every evening to explore these quiet corners of the past, sharing new history narrations just like this one every single day. If you find these journeys into the ancient world help you drift off, you might consider subscribing so you never miss a night of rest with us. A simple like on the video also helps others find their way to our quiet community. But for now, let the weight of the world drop away as we return to the cooling sands of the Egyptian night. The silence here is never truly empty. It is a thick, textured quiet, punctuated by the distant, lonely cry of a jackal or the dry rattle of a desert shrub catching the breeze. You can feel the history of this place pressing upward through the soles of your sandals. Beneath you lie the great officials of the Old Kingdom, the priests of the Middle Kingdom, and the soldiers of the New, all resting in a silence that you have been tasked to protect and facilitate. Your hands, stained faintly with the dark resins and aromatic oils of your trade, carry the scent of cedarwood, myrrh, and bitumen. It is a fragrance that marks you, a lingering reminder of the delicate work you perform within the shadows of the embalming house. Even now in the twilight, you can still feel the slick texture of the natron salt between your fingers and the cool, damp sensation of the linen bandages you have spent the afternoon preparing. The desert sky is transitioning from a vibrant, bruised purple into a deep, velvety indigo, and the first stars are beginning to flicker into existence above the peak of the pyramid. They are the imperishable ones, the stars that never set, and they serve as a map for the souls you help to prepare for their final journey. You look down at your own hands, seeing them silhouetted against the pale sand, and you think of the incredible responsibility you carry. You are the bridge between the fleeting world of the sun and the eternal world of the night. Every movement you make, every jar of ointment you blend, and every prayer you murmur is a stitch in the fabric of someone's forever. The ache in your lower back seems to pulse in time with the heartbeat of the land, a reminder that you are a living part of this ancient machinery of transition. As you turn back toward the entrance of your workshop, the limestone walls seem to glow with a faint, ghostly luminescence in the starlight. The heat of the day is being pulled upward into the vastness of the cosmos, leaving the stone beneath your hand feeling wonderfully cool and solid. You know every crack and fissure in these walls. You know the way the air moves through the subterranean corridors, carrying the faint, sweet smoke of incense from the nearby temples. The world of the living, with its noisy markets and crowded riverbanks, feels like a distant memory, a shimmering mirage that has no place in the profound stillness of the Necropolis. Here, time does not move in a straight line. It circles back on itself, echoing the cycles of the Nile and the rising and setting of the great sun god, Ra. You linger for a moment longer on the threshold, watching as the last sliver of the sun disappears, leaving only a faint glowing line on the edge of the world. The darkness is not frightening here. It is a protective cloak, a sanctuary where the spirit can find its way home. You can feel your own breath slowing, matching the rhythm of the wind as it combs through the dunes. The sand underfoot is soft and yielding, absorbing the sound of your movements as you prepare to descend once more into the heart of the earth. There is a profound sense of belonging in this place, a knowledge that you are exactly where you are meant to be, participating in a ritual as old as the mountains themselves. The transition from day to night in Saqqara is more than just a change in light. It is a shift in the very nature of reality. The boundaries between the seen and the unseen grow thin, and the air becomes heavy with the weight of unseen presences. You are not alone in this desert, and yet there is no fear, only a deep, abiding reverence for the mysteries you are privileged to touch. As you take one final look at the stars, you feel a sense of profound readiness. The laboratory of the dead awaits, with its jars of precious oils and its stacks of clean linen, and you are ready to enter its quiet embrace once more. The desert night has arrived, and with it comes the peace of the ages, wrapping around you like a shroud of softest silk, guiding you toward the rest you have so rightfully earned. The smell of parched earth and ancient dust has a way of settling into the very pores of your skin, a fine golden grit that reminds you of the immense weight of time resting just beneath your boots. For weeks, you have walked this stretch of the Saqqara plateau alongside Dr. Ramadan Hussein and the rest of the German-Egyptian team, your eyes scanning the undulating waves of sand for a sign, a whisper, a structural anomaly that the desert might have missed while tidying its vast golden bed. It is a quiet kind of work, marked by the rhythmic scrape of trowels and the low, measured murmur of colleagues discussing the positioning of the Unas pyramid or the distant, jagged silhouette of the step pyramid of Djoser. You feel the heat of the midday sun radiating off the limestone blocks, a dry, baking warmth that makes the cool water in your canteen feel like a miracle of the modern world. There is a specific kind of silence that precedes a great discovery, a stillness that feels less like an absence of sound and more like the world holding its breath. You are standing near a patch of ground that looks no different from the thousands of acres surrounding it. Yet, as the team clears away the upper layers of debris, the ground beneath you seems to shift its character. It is no longer just loose, wind-blown silt. You feel the resistance of something deliberate, something shaped by human hands thousands of years ago. As you brush away the surface, a dark line appears in the earth, a sharp geometric edge that doesn't belong in the chaotic geometry of nature. The moment the sand finally gives way, it does so with a soft, sighing sound, revealing the mouth of a vertical shaft. You lean over the edge, the sudden shadow cast by the pit cooling your face, and you realize that you are looking into a throat of stone that drops straight down into the belly of the plateau. It is 30 meters deep, nearly 100 feet of absolute unblinking darkness. You feel a slight shiver, not of fear, but of profound anticipation. This is not the shallow grave of a commoner or the looted chamber of a minor official. This is a descent into a forgotten world. As the team prepares the equipment, you watch the slow, methodical process of setting up the pulleys and the high-resolution cameras. There is no rush here. The desert has waited 2,600 years for this moment, and it can wait a few hours more. You help guide the cables, feeling the rough texture of the rope against your palms, a physical link between the bright, searing light of the 21st century and the cool, silent depths of the Saite period. When the camera is finally lowered, you gather around the monitors in the makeshift command tent, the blue light of the screens reflecting in your eyes. The descent is slow, agonizingly slow. The camera light cuts through the gloom, illuminating walls of roughly hewn limestone that have not seen a photon of light since the 26th dynasty. You watch the footage as if in a dream. The shaft seems endless, a vertical tunnel carved with such precision that you can still see the marks of the copper chisels used by the ancient masons. Your back aches slightly from leaning forward, but you don't move. You are waiting for the bottom, for the moment the camera finds the floor of this hidden abyss. And then the movement stops. The camera settles. At first, you see what you expect, the rocky floor of a burial chamber. But as the operator pans the lens, your breath hitches in your throat. This is not a tomb, or rather, it is not only a tomb. You see rows of ceramic jars, hundreds of them, tucked into niches and stacked against the walls. You see strange rectangular vats carved directly into the bedrock. You see drainage channels and stone tables. The realization washes over you like a wave of cool water. This was a place of industry. This was a place of work. You are looking at a hidden laboratory, a subterranean workshop where the living once labored to ensure the immortality of the dead. It is an embalming house, a mummification center tucked away from the prying eyes of the public and the heat of the sun. You imagine the men who once stood where the camera now rests, their hands stained with resins, their clothes smelling of frankincense and cedar oil. You can almost feel the humidity that must have hung in the air here, the heavy, sweet scent of natron and spices mixing with the cool, damp breath of the earth. The scale of it is staggering. Most embalming sites found in the past were mere footprints in the sand, temporary structures that vanished long ago. But this is a permanent cathedral of anatomy. As you watch the camera feed, you notice the inscriptions on the jars. They aren't just names, they are instructions. You see the words for oil of the head and linen of the weaver. It is as if the ancient embalmers left behind their own technical manual, etched in clay and stone, waiting for you to find it. You step out of the tent for a moment to clear your head. The transition from the dark monitor to the bright Egyptian afternoon making you squint. You look out over the Saqqara necropolis, at the crumbling mastabas and the distant pyramids, and you realize that your understanding of this landscape has just fundamentally changed. Beneath your feet, there is a hidden infrastructure of the afterlife, a complex network of rooms where the transition from human to ancestor was carefully, scientifically managed. The air around you is still, but you feel a new energy in the camp. The survey is over. The discovery has begun. You think about the depth of that shaft, 30 meters of solid rock standing between the world of the living and this silent laboratory. It was designed to stay hidden, to protect the sacred secrets of the embalmers from the passage of centuries. And yet, here you are, standing on the threshold of their most private domain. The weight of the wool cloak on your shoulders feels heavier now, a reminder of the responsibility you carry as a witness to this resurrection. As the sun begins to dip lower, casting long purple shadows across the dunes, you find yourself drawn back to the edge of the pit. You look down into that square of darkness, and you feel a strange sense of kinship with the people who built it. They were craftsmen, just like the masons you see in the villages today. They had schedules, they had tools, and they had a deep, abiding commitment to their craft. You can almost hear the ghostly clink of those jars being moved, the soft rustle of linen being torn into strips, and the low chanting of priests echoing up the shaft. This was not a place of mourning, you realize, but a place of transformation. It was a factory of the soul. And as you prepare for the long work ahead, the slow, careful descent into the pit, the cataloguing of every shard and stain, you do so with a sense of quiet reverence. The desert has shared one of its greatest secrets with you, and as you walk back toward your quarters, the sand crunching softly under your boots, you know that your life will never be quite the same. The laboratory of the dead is open once more, and its story is only just beginning to be told. The iron tang of ancient dust settles on your tongue as you begin the descent, a taste that has lingered in this limestone throat for more than 2,000 years. You place your hand against the wall of the shaft, feeling the rough-hewn texture of the bedrock, a jagged contrast to the soft, shifting dunes above. Each step downward takes you further from the blinding glare of the Egyptian sun, and as the light fades into a soft amber glow, the temperature begins to drop. The transition is sudden. One moment you are bathed in the dry, searing heat of the Saqqara plateau, and the next you are enveloped by a profound, heavy stillness. The air here is different. It is thick with the weight of time, yet surprisingly cool against your skin, a natural refrigeration provided by the earth itself. You reach the bottom of the shaft, 30 feet below the surface, and your boots find purchase on a floor of solid stone. This is the heart of the Mummification workshop, a subterranean sanctuary carved with deliberate surgical precision into the very bones of the desert. As you hold your lamp aloft, the shadows retreat to reveal a vast central hall, a space designed not for the living, but for the meticulous transition of the dead. The layout is hauntingly efficient. You walk toward the center of the room, noticing how the floor tilts almost imperceptibly toward a series of drainage channels. Here, the embalmers once stood for hours on end, their feet firm on the cold rock, their hands moving with the practiced grace of craftsmen who understood that they were working on the threshold of eternity. Your eyes trace the outlines of the rectangular vats cut directly into the floor, large enough to hold a human form submerged in natron's salt. You can almost feel the phantom ache in your own lower back as you imagine the physical toll of this labor, the constant bending, the lifting, the rhythmic scrubbing of linen. The room is organized with a chillingly beautiful logic. To your left, a series of niches are carved into the walls at chest height, perfect shelves for the ceramic jars that once held the oils, resins, and spices necessary for the preservation of the flesh. You reach out and touch the edge of one such niche, feeling the thin layer of fine white powder, the pulverized remains of limestone that still coats the surface. It is a quiet, tactile connection to the workers who stood exactly where you are standing now, perhaps wiping sweat from their brows with a linen-wrapped forearm before reaching for a jar of cedar oil or a bundle of lichen. As you breathe in, you notice the air is remarkably fresh, despite the depth and the centuries of closure. You look upward, following the path of your lamp's beam, and discover the secret. High above, near the ceiling of the chamber, narrow ventilation shafts angle upward through the rock, reaching toward the surface like the chimneys of a great silent engine. These were not mere accidents of construction. They were a sophisticated engineering solution to a grim, practical problem. In the height of the summer, when the desert above baked under a relentless sun, these shafts created a natural draft, pulling the cooler, denser air from the depths and circulating it through the workspace. You stand still, closing your eyes, and for a moment you can feel the faintest movement of air against your cheek. A ghostly breeze that once helped to carry away the heavy, cloying sense of decay and the pungent medicinal fumes of boiling bitumen. The architecture here serves a dual purpose, acting as both a laboratory and a temple. The walls are not decorated with the vibrant, colourful scenes found in the tombs of the elite. Instead, they are left bare, the marks of the chisels still visible in the lamplight. There is a raw, honest beauty in this lack of ornament. It reminds you that this was a place of work, a place where the physical reality of death was met with the practical reality of chemistry and prayer. You move deeper into the hall, your footsteps echoing softly against the bedrock, and you realize that the silence here is not empty. It is a full, resonant silence, the kind that exists in deep caves or old cathedrals. The weight of the earth above you, thousands of tons of sand and stone, creates a sense of absolute security, a cocoon-like environment where the outside world feels like a distant, flickering memory. You find yourself drawn to a large, flat slab of limestone in the center of the hall, the primary embalming table. It is massive, a permanent fixture of the room's anatomy. As you run your hand over its surface, you feel the subtle grooves worn into the stone, perhaps by the friction of countless linen shrouds or the constant scouring of the priests. The stone is cold, a deep, penetrating cold that seems to seep into your bones, yet it is not unpleasant. It is a grounding sensation, a reminder of the permanence of the earth. You imagine the scene as it once was, the flickering light of oil lamps casting long, dancing shadows against the walls, the low murmur of ritual incantations, and the rhythmic splashing of water as the body was purified. The air would have been thick with the scent of frankincense and myrrh, masking the sharper, more visceral smells of the work. Wrapped in your wool cloak against the subterranean chill, you lean back against a pillar, letting the stillness wash over you. The architecture of this space was designed to manage the impossible, to take the most fleeting, fragile thing, the human body, and prepare it for a journey across millennia. Every angle of the room, every ventilation duct, every drainage channel was a testament to a culture that refused to let death have the final word. You find a strange comfort in the order of it all. Even here, in the dark heart of the necropolis, there was a system, a set of rules, a way to move forward. The ache in your legs from the climb down begins to fade, replaced by a slow, contemplative rhythm of thought. You are a guest in a house built for the ages, a witness to the quiet, hidden mechanics of immortality. You reach out a hand, steadying yourself against the cool, damp limestone of the wall, and your fingers brush against something unexpected, the rough, unglazed curve of a clay rim. As your eyes adjust to the flickering amber light of the oil lamp, you realize you are not standing in an empty chamber, but in a library of earthen vessels. They are everywhere. Hundreds of ceramic bowls, slender jars, and small, stout measuring cups are tucked into every available niche and stacked in neat, purposeful rows along the floor. The air here smells different than the corridor above. It is thick and heavy, a concentrated perfume of cedar forests, salty earth, and the sharp, medicinal tang of pine. It is the scent of a pharmacy, where the patient is already gone, and the medicine is meant for the soul's long journey through the stars. You crouch down, the fabric of your linen tunic pulling tight across your shoulders, and pick up a small, palm-sized bowl. It feels surprisingly light, yet it carries the weight of a profound responsibility. Looking closer, you notice dark, elegant brushstrokes of ink marring the surface of the clay. It is the hieratic script, the cursive hand of the scribes, and as you trace the symbols with your thumb, you begin to understand the meticulous nature of the work being done here. These are not merely pots, they are instructions, One label reads, "To put on his head," while another, on a taller, slender jar, specifies, "To make his skin beautiful." You find yourself marveling at the intimacy of these directions. There is no frantic haste in this writing, only a quiet, clinical precision. You are standing in the center of a laboratory where chemistry and theology have become one and the same. The floor beneath your feet is dusted with a fine, pale powder, likely the spilled remnants of natron, and you move carefully so as not to disturb the order of the tools. You notice a series of measuring cups, each graduated with small nicks in the clay to ensure the exact proportions of a recipe. The embalmers were not merely artisans, they were chemists of the sacred. To preserve a body for thousands of years required more than just salt. It required a sophisticated understanding of how resins from the distant Levant would react with the fats of the desert. You peer into a large, wide-mouthed jar and see a dark, obsidian-like substance clinging to the interior. This is bitumen, the black pitch that gives the mummies their name, sourced from the shores of the Dead Sea. It is cold to the touch, hard as stone now, but you can imagine it, once bubbling over a small charcoal brazier. Its acrid smoke filling this very room as it was prepared to seal the linen wrappings against the dampness of time. Beside the bitumen, you find a smaller vessel containing a golden, waxy residue. You scrape a tiny fragment away with your fingernail, and the faint, sweet scent of beeswax rises to meet you. It was used to seal the ears, the nose, and the eyes, protecting the senses of the deceased, so they might wake in the afterlife with their faculties intact. There are traces of pistachio resin, imported from the high plateaus of Iran, and the clear, brittle tears of frankincense from the southern coasts of Arabia. Every jar represents a trade route, a caravan crossing hundreds of miles of burning sand, and a ship braving the white-capped waves of the great green sea, all to bring these specific ingredients to this subterranean workshop in Saqqara. You feel a sense of awe at the scale of it, the entire known world contributing its rarest treasures to ensure that one person's body would not crumble into dust. The precision required here is staggering, and you feel a slow ache in your back as you contemplate the hours spent hunched over these vessels. One wrong measurement, too much of one oil or too little of another, and the delicate process of desiccation could fail. The chemistry had to be perfect to halt the natural cycle of decay, to freeze the human form in a state of perpetual readiness. You pick up a stirring rod made of dark wood, its end stained a deep, permanent mahogany from years of use. It feels smooth in your hand, worn down by the constant friction of mixing resins and oils. You can almost see the embalmer standing where you stand now, his movements practiced and rhythmic, his mind focused on the exact viscosity of the cedar oil as he prepared to pour it into the cedar wood vats. As you continue to explore the shelves, you realize that these pots tell a story of evolution. Some of the vessels are old, reused from earlier periods, while others are fresh from the kiln, their surfaces still crisp. This laboratory was a living space, a place of constant refinement. You find jars that once held juniper berries, used for their antibacterial properties, and others that contained animal fats mixed with aromatic herbs to create a supple ointment for the limbs. The sheer variety of the inventory is overwhelming. 1,000 different solutions for 1,000 different needs. You realize that the secret of the mummies wasn't a single magic spell, but a vast, encyclopedic knowledge of the natural world distilled into these humble ceramic bowls. You find a quiet corner and sit for a moment, resting your weight against a stack of unused linen bandages that feels soft and cool, like a pile of fresh clouds. The silence of the laboratory is absolute, broken only by the sound of your own steady breathing. In this stillness, the vessels around you seem to hum with a quiet energy, as if they are still holding their breath, waiting for the next task. You think about the hands that crafted these jars, the potters who sat at their wheels in the sun-drenched courtyards above, never knowing that their work would end up deep in the earth, cradling the ingredients of eternity. There is a profound sense of continuity here, a bridge built between the heat of the kiln and the cold of the tomb. The light from your lamp catches a small crystalline glimmer inside a shallow dish. You lean forward and see a few grains of salt, translucent and sharp. This is the natron, the heart of the entire process, gathered from the dry lake beds of the Wadi Natrun. It is simple, yet it is the most powerful tool in the embalmer's kit. You touch a single grain, feeling its bite against your skin, and you are reminded that even the most complex chemistry begins with the simplest elements of the earth, the jars, the resins, the bitumen, and the salt. They are the physical manifestations of a prayer, a collective effort to defy the inevitable. Looking at the labels once more, you notice how human they are. Some of the handwriting is hurried, perhaps written during a busy season when the necropolis was full, while other labels are ornate and beautiful, as if the scribe took personal pride in the aesthetics of the laboratory. You find a bowl labeled for the 7th day, a reminder that this process was governed by a strict calendar, a ritualized countdown that lasted 70 days from the moment of death to the final sealing of the tomb. Each jar had its moment in the sequence, a specific time to be opened and a specific purpose to fulfill. You are standing in a place where time was measured not by the sun, but by the slow, steady transformation of the flesh into something enduring. The weight of the wool cloak around your shoulders feels heavier now, a comforting reminder of the world above, but your eyes remain fixed on the pottery. You feel a strange sense of kinship with the people who worked here. They were planners, organizers, and protectors. They saw the chaos of death and met it with the order of the laboratory. As you prepare to move deeper into the complex, you take one last look at the rows of vessels, their shadows stretching long across the floor. They are the silent sentinels of Saqqara, the humble keepers of the greatest secret of all, the recipe for forever. You stand up slowly, your joints protesting the movement, and feel the cool air of the deeper chambers beckoning you forward, away from the jars and toward the heart of the mystery. The scent of the workshop changes as you move deeper into the shadows, shifting from the sharp, earthy musk of the storage jars to something cleaner, more medicinal and unsettlingly sharp. It is a smell that catches in the back of your throat, a mixture of resin and salt that seems to dry the very air you breathe. You reach out a hand to steady yourself against the limestone wall, feeling the grit of the stone against your palm, and notice how your own skin looks pale and living against the ancient, unmoving rock. Here, in this quiet pocket of the earth, you are standing at the intersection of magic and molecules, where the priests of Saqqara became the world's first true chemists. You look down at your hands, stained with the faint yellow hue of cedar oil, and you remember the way the liquid felt as you poured it, thick, viscous, and smelling of the high, cold mountains of the north. You know, through generations of whispered tradition and the practical trial of 1,000 years, that this oil is more than just a perfume. When you rub it into the skin of the departed, you are not merely honoring them, you are waging a silent war against decay. You have seen how a fallen branch of cedar resists the rot of the marsh, and you apply that same stubborn endurance to the human form. Scientifically, though you would not call it such, you are applying a powerful antiseptic. The phenols within the cedar oil act as a barrier, a microscopic shield that turns the soft, vulnerable flesh into something as hardy as timber. It is a strange thought to hold as you wipe your fingers on your linen apron, that you are helping a person become a tree, unyielding and immune to the tiny, invisible forces that seek to return all life to the dust. Beside the cedar oil sits a smaller bowl of crushed juniper berries, their scent bright and gin-like, cutting through the heavier atmosphere of the chamber. You pick up a handful of the dried fruit, feeling the shriveled skins against your thumb. When these are steeped into oils and applied to the wrappings, they serve a dual purpose. They provide a fragrance that suggests the freshness of a garden in the morning, but more importantly, they act as a preservative that keeps the linen from souring. You watch a stray bead of oil roll slowly down the side of the bowl, mesmerized by its clarity. It is a bridge you are building, a bridge made of resins and saps, spanning the wide, dark river between the pulse of life and the stillness of eternity. Your back aches with a dull, familiar thrum as you turn toward the large wooden bins that dominate the center of the room. Inside lies the natron, the white, crystalline salt gathered from the dry lake beds of the Wadi Natrun. You plunge your arms into the bin, the salt feeling cold and abrasive against your skin, tucking itself under your fingernails and into the creases of your knuckles. This is the heart of the 70-day transformation. You understand the physics of it in your bones, even if you lack the modern vocabulary of desiccation. The natron does not simply sit upon the body, it hungrily seeks out moisture, drawing the water from every cell and fiber until the flesh is leathered and firm. You imagine the body resting beneath a mound of this white salt for weeks on end, the silence of the chamber mirroring the silence of the transformation. It is a slow, patient process, much like the way the sun bakes the mud of the Nile banks into hard brick. Without this drying, all the fragrant oils in the world would be useless. The rot would simply bloom from within. But the natron ensures a purity of bone and skin, a literal stripping away of the ephemeral to reveal the permanent structure beneath. As you pull your arms from the bin and shake off the white dust, you feel the moisture leaving your own skin, leaving your hands feeling tight and dry. It is a small price to pay for the knowledge of how to halt time itself. As you walk along the workbench, you see the smaller vials, each labelled with the specific purpose that dictates its use. You pick up a small, blue-glazed pot containing a mixture of animal fats and balsam. This is not for the torso or the limbs, but specifically for the head, the seat of the spirit and the face that must be recognized in the hall of judgment. You think of the precision required in your work, the way you must treat the different parts of the human anatomy as distinct landscapes. The stomach and the chest require heavy resins to seal them, while the delicate skin of the face needs softer, more supple oils to prevent the features from pinching and distorting under the weight of the bandages. There is a profound logic to your movements, a sequence of chemical reactions that you perform with the grace of a ritual. You are not just a priest, you are a technician of the soul's vessel. You know that if the oil is too hot, it will scorch the linen. If the natron is too coarse, it will tear the parchment-thin skin. Every decision you make is a calculation, a blending of ancient ritual and what the future will one day call chemistry. You are using the natural world, the minerals of the earth, the blood of the trees, the salts of the desert, to defy the natural order of dissolution. The weight of your wool cloak feels heavy on your shoulders as you lean over a tray of bitumen, its dark, tar-like surface reflecting the flickering light of your oil lamp. It is thick and stubborn, requiring heat to become workable. When you apply this to the deepest layers of the wrappings, you are creating a waterproof seal, a black cocoon that will protect the body from the dampness of the earth and the humidity of the tomb. It is the final layer of defense, the ultimate sealant in your arsenal of immortality. You can feel the warmth of the brazier nearby, the heat radiating against your shins, reminding you of the fire needed to transform these raw materials into the tools of your trade. In this quiet moment, surrounded by the tools of preservation, you realize that you are the guardian of a great secret. The world outside continues its frantic pace, the farmers tending the grain, the tax collectors marking their scrolls, the children playing in the dusty streets. But here, time has been mastered. You have found a way to make the soft things of the world hard and the fleeting things permanent. You look at the jars, the salts and the oils, and you see them for what they truly are, the ingredients of a miracle. You take a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of 1,000 years of expertise. Your feet feel heavy on the cold stone floor, a reminder of your own mortality, even as you work to grant it to others. The bridge between the ancient ritual and the science of the future is not built of stone or wood, but of these very substances you handle every day. It is a legacy of observation, of trial and error, and of a deep, abiding respect for the physical reality of the body. As you prepare to move to the next stage of the process, you feel a sense of calm settle over you. The chemistry of immortality is not a mystery to be solved, but a practice to be lived, one drop of oil and one grain of salt at a time. The copper bowl in your hands is cool to the touch, a stark contrast to the stifling heat that usually clings to the upper chambers of the necropolis. Here, in the depths of the Saqqara laboratory, the air remains a constant, earthy chill that seeps into your bones, a reminder that you are standing in a place where time has been asked to hold its breath. You look down at the body before you, now resting on the clean limestone slab. This is the beginning of the 70 days, a span of time so precisely measured that it mirrors the celestial journey of the star Sirius, which disappears from the sky for 70 days before being reborn in the dawn. You feel the weight of this timeline in the slow ache of your lower back and the rhythmic pulsing in your fingertips. It is not merely a period of preservation, but a transformation that cannot be rushed. To move too quickly would be to insult the gods. To move too slowly would be to let the physical world reclaim what belongs to eternity. You begin the first of the many washings, pouring water mixed with natron over the skin. The sound is a gentle, rhythmic splashing against the stone, a liquid echo in the quiet room. This is the purification, the wabet, where the stains of the earthly life are rinsed away. You watch the water trail across the skin, carrying away the dust of the living world, and you realize that your own hands are being purified alongside the silent form you tend. As you work, a low, melodic vibration fills the chamber. It is the voice of the lector priest, standing just a few paces away. He does not look at the body, but keeps his eyes fixed on the papyrus scroll unrolled in his hands. His voice is a steady, resonant baritone that seems to vibrate through the very floor beneath your feet. He recites the ancient incantations, the words weaving through the air like the smoke from the frankincense burner. You don't need to listen to the specific words to understand their purpose. The cadence itself is a tool, as essential to the process as your obsidian blade or your linen wraps. The priest's chanting provides the heartbeat for the room, a steady, unwavering pulse that keeps your movements fluid and deliberate. There is a profound meditative quality to this repetition. You find yourself moving in time with the syllables pour, wipe, pause, pour, wipe, pause. The work becomes a form of prayer in motion. You are no longer just an embalmer performing a craft. You are a participant in a cosmic cycle. The 70 days are divided into two distinct halves, and as you begin the long process of dehydration, burying the body in mounds of dry natron salt, you feel the transition in the atmosphere of the workshop. The first 40 days are silent and transformative, as the salt draws the moisture from the flesh, leaving behind only the essential essence. During this time, you return to the body daily, checking the levels of the salt, feeling the texture of the linen, and listening to the priest's voice as it guides the spirit through the perilous gates of the duat. The air in the laboratory grows thick with the scent of drying herbs and the sharp mineral tang of the natron. It clings to your wool cloak and settles in your hair, a perfume of the afterlife that follows you, even when you leave the necropolis to sleep. You notice how the light from the oil lamps flickers against the walls, casting long dancing shadows that seem to mimic the gestures of the gods depicted in the wall carvings. In this dim, amber glow, the boundary between the physical and the spiritual feels thin, like a sheet of fine papyrus. You are the bridge between these two realms. Your hands, calloused and stained with resins, are the instruments through which the soul finds its permanent home. And so, the weeks pass in a blur of ritual and labor. By the time the 40th day arrives, the body has become light, almost weightless, a leather-dry vessel ready for its final adornment. This is when the second half of the journey begins, the 30 days of wrapping and anointing. You pick up a roll of fine linen, the fabric soft and cool against your palms. You begin at the fingers, winding the narrow strips with a precision that has been passed down through 100 generations. Each turn of the cloth is accompanied by a specific prayer from the lector priest. "You live again," he intones. "You live again forever." You tuck small amulets of green feldspar and blue faience between the layers of linen, a heart scarab here, a diad pillar there, placing them over the vital points of the body to provide protection in the halls of judgment. The rhythm of the wrapping is hypnotic. Around the limbs, over the torso, circling the head, the steady overlapping layers create a cocoon of safety. You feel a strange sense of companionship with the person beneath the linen. Though they cannot speak, you have come to know the contours of their face and the unique shape of their hands better than perhaps anyone else ever did. In the silence of the laboratory, you find yourself reflecting on the fleeting nature of a single human life compared to the vast, unmoving desert outside. Yet, through your work, that fleeting life is anchored. You are weaving them into the tapestry of the stars. As the 70th day approaches, the pace of the work does not quicken. Instead, it deepens. The final anointing involves oils so precious they are kept in sealed alabaster jars, scents of cedar from the mountains of Lebanon and myrrh from the distant land of Punt. You massage these oils into the linen, the fragrance blooming in the cool air until the entire chamber smells like a divine garden. Your movements are slow, almost reverent, as you apply the final resinous coatings that will harden into a golden protective shell. The lector priest's voice reaches a final soaring crescendo, his words echoing off the vaulted ceiling as he calls upon Anubis to lead the way. You stand back for a moment, wiping your hands on a clean cloth. The transformation is complete. What was once a fragile, breaking thing is now a Sar, a glorious body, ready to stand before Osiris. The ache in your back is still there, a dull reminder of the physical cost of this labor, but it is overshadowed by a profound sense of completion. You have kept the watch. You have followed the timeline set by the heavens. As you prepare the body for its final journey to the tomb, you realize that the 70 days have changed you as well. You have lived in the space between worlds, and as you step out of the shadows of the laboratory into the fading light of the desert evening, the world feels different, quieter, more intentional, and infinitely more sacred. The weight of a small wooden chest presses against your palms, its surface polished smooth by the oils of your skin. Inside, cushioned by layers of fine, unbleached linen, lies the culmination of a master's craft, a face that does not age, a gaze that does not falter. You walk with slow, deliberate steps back into the depths of the earth, leaving the cool evening breeze of Saqqara behind. The transition from the open air to the limestone corridor is a physical threshold. The temperature drops, and the scent of the desert is replaced by the heavy, sweet aroma of cedar resin and the sharp, metallic tang of the tools you carry. Your sandals click softly against the stone floor, a rhythmic heartbeat in the stillness of the necropolis. You have come to the final chamber to meet the one you have spent these 70 days preparing. He was a priest of the goddess Mut, a man who served the divine in life and now seeks to join their ranks in the Duat. The mummy lies upon the bier, wrapped in its protective cocoon of bandages, silent and expectant. But he is not yet complete. To navigate the trials of the afterlife, to stand before the lords of the western horizon, he requires a countenance that reflects his new, exalted status. You reach into the chest and lift the mask, and for a moment the breath catches in your throat. It is surprisingly light in your hands, yet it carries the gravity of eternity. This is no ordinary funerary mask of cartonnage or painted wood. It is a rare marvel of gilded silver, a treasure so precious that its very existence feels like a whisper from a forgotten age. As you hold it, the flickering light of your oil lamp dances across its surface, creating ripples of amber and pale white. In the theology of your people, gold is the flesh of the gods, but silver, rare and elusive, is their very bone. To grant a man a face of silver is to graft his soul onto the skeletal structure of the divine. You feel the cool, smooth texture of the metal against your fingertips, marveling at the skill of the smith who hammered this sheet until it was as thin as a dragonfly's wing, yet strong enough to endure for 10,000 years. You lean in closer, the warmth of the lamp reflecting off the mask and onto your own weathered face. You can see the individual hammer marks on the reverse side, the ghost of the artisan's rhythm preserved in the metal. The smith began with a thick ingot, heating it in the coals until it glowed a dull cherry red, then beating it out with stones and bronze hammers, thinning it, stretching it, coaxing the stubborn metal to take the shape of a human soul. The features are lifelike yet idealized. The high, noble brow, the straight bridge of the nose, the slight, enigmatic curve of the lips that seems to suggest a secret shared with the stars. It is a face that has moved beyond the reach of hunger, fatigue, or sorrow. As you prepare to set the mask upon the mummy, you notice how the light behaves differently upon its surface. The gilding, a thin layer of gold applied over the silver, gives it a warmth, a sun-kissed glow that speaks of the day. But beneath that gold, the silver provides a lunar depth, a shimmering quality that feels like moonlight reflecting off the surface of a still pond. It is a marriage of the sun and the moon, a balance of the eternal day and the infinite night. You realize that in the darkness of the tomb, when the torches are finally extinguished and the heavy stone lid is slid into place, this mask will not truly be in the dark. To the eyes of the spirit, it will glow with its own internal light, a beacon in the subterranean gloom. Your fingers tremble slightly as you align the mask over the linen-wrapped head. This is the moment of transformation. You are not merely covering a corpse, you are revealing a god. You adjust the position, ensuring the eyes of the mask, inlaid with obsidian and calcite, align with where the man's eyes once looked out upon the Nile. The craftsmanship is so precise that the mask seems to inhale as it settles into place. The silver-gilt surface catches the low light of the chamber, and for a fleeting second, the priest seems to stir, the shimmering effect of the metal creating an illusion of movement, a flicker of life in the stillness of the grave. The ache in your back from weeks of labor seems to fade as you contemplate the work. You think of the mines in the eastern desert, or the far-off lands of the north where this silver might have originated. Traded through a dozen hands, carried over mountains and across seas, only to end up here, in your calloused hands, serving as the eternal face of a silent priest. It is a heavy responsibility, the knowledge that your placement of this mask is the last time human hands will touch this visage before the end of time. The silver bones of the gods are now his bones. His transition is complete. You step back, the torch in your hand casting long, swaying shadows against the hieroglyph-covered walls. The mask continues to shimmer, a pale, ghostly fire in the center of the room. It is a window into the divine, a bridge built of precious metal and unwavering faith. As you prepare to leave the chamber, you find yourself walking backward, unwilling to turn your eyes away from that radiant silver gaze. The silence of the tomb is no longer heavy. It is full, vibrating with the resonance of the metal and the weight of the ritual. You reach the doorway and pause, watching the way the light catches the curve of the mask's cheek one last time, a single golden spark in the gathering dark. The scent of cedar oil and stale natron clings to the fibers of your linen tunic, a persistent reminder of the work that never truly ceases in the shadow of the step pyramid. You step out of the quiet, shimmering humidity of the mask chamber and back into the main corridor of the workshop, where the air is thick with a different kind of energy. It is not the hushed reverence of the divine, but the rhythmic, industrious hum of a thriving business. Your sandals scuff against the limestone floor, worn smooth by the passage of countless feet, and you feel the familiar ache in your lower back, a dull, constant weight from hours spent leaning over the embalming tables. You walk toward a small alcove where a scribe sits cross-legged, his reed pen dancing over a roll of papyrus. This is the heart of the enterprise, the place where the spiritual becomes the material. As you look over his shoulder, you see the ledgers of the dead. This laboratory is not merely a temple, it is a commercial hub, a place of contracts, negotiations, and tiered services. You realize, as you watch the ink dry, that the journey to the afterlife is as much a matter of coin as it is of prayer. The workshop operates with the clinical efficiency of a modern counting house, managing dozens of clients simultaneously, each at a different stage of their 70-day transformation. In your hand, you hold a small ostracon, a flake of limestone used for jotting down notes, that serves as a sort of menu for the grieving families who climb the plateau to seek your services. You run your thumb over the rough surface, feeling the jagged edges. For the elite, those who arrive with the scent of wealth and the backing of royal favor, the options are limitless. They choose the premium package, the internal organs removed through a precise incision and placed in jars of translucent alabaster, the body cavity rinsed with the finest palm wine and stuffed with sachets of myrrh and crushed aromatics, the skin treated with costly resins that will turn the flesh into a dark, enduring statue. These are the clients who will wear the silver masks and rest in sarcophagi of imported basalt, their names carved in deep, confident hieroglyphs. But as you move deeper into the workshop, you pass the tables of those with more modest means. You see the embalmers working with a different set of tools here. For the middle-class merchant or the local landowner, the process is streamlined. Perhaps there is no incision, but instead an injection of cedar oil to dissolve the inner workings, a shorter stay in the dry embrace of the natron salts, a wrapping of recycled linens rather than the fresh, fine-spun bolts from the temple looms. You look at the face of a man being prepared on the third table. He will not have a silver mask, but perhaps a gilded plaster headpiece that catches the torchlight just enough to mimic the glow of the gods. Even in death, the social strata of Egypt remain as rigid as the stones of the Necropolis. The logistics of this operation are staggering, and you feel the mental strain of keeping the various accounts in order. To your left, a group of workers is hauling heavy jars of natron up from the storage pits, their rhythmic grunts echoing off the ceiling. To your right, a specialized team of mummy wrappers is meticulously applying resin-soaked bandages to a priestess, a process that requires hundreds of yards of fabric and days of patient labor. You must coordinate the flow of bodies, the arrival of supplies, and the schedules of the various specialists, the cutters, the vatsmen, the painters, and the priests who must recite the correct incantations at the exact moment the resins are poured. You stop by a large ceramic vat, the heat from the nearby charcoal brazier warming your shins through your thin clothing. The smell of boiling resin is sweet and suffocating, like a forest caught in a summer storm. This resin is expensive, imported from the distant hills of the Levant, and every drop must be accounted for. You watch a worker dip a brush into the dark, viscous liquid, and you think about the vast economic ecosystem that sustains this city of the dead. The Saqqara necropolis is not a lonely graveyard. It is a massive employer. It supports the woodcutters who provide the fuel for the fires, the potters who bake the thousands of offering bowls and canopic jars, the weavers in the valley whose looms never stop clacking, and the traders whose caravans bring the spices and oils from the edges of the known world. As you walk, you notice a small pile of labels made of wood and clay, each inscribed with a name and a specific set of instructions. For the son of the grain overseer, use the second-grade natron, 3 amulets of green feldspar, heart scarab of schist. These tags are tied to the toes or wrists of the deceased, ensuring that in the busy chaos of the workshop, no one receives a burial they haven't paid for, and no one is deprived of the specific magic they purchased for their journey. It is a strange, pragmatic blend of the sacred and the mundane. You are a priest, yes, but you are also a manager of a high-volume facility where time and materials are carefully measured against the weight of a person's life savings. The floor beneath your feet is stained with spills of oil and bitumen, dark patches that have soaked into the stone over decades of use. You feel the grit of sand and salt under your soles, a reminder of the relentless environment of the desert plateau. The workshop never truly sleeps. Even at night, the fires must be tended, and the bodies in the natron pits must be checked to ensure the desiccation is proceeding correctly. You think of the families waiting down in the valley, in the lush green shadows of the palms, counting the days until their loved ones are returned to them, transformed, preserved, and ready for the tomb. They have paid their deposits. They have signed their contracts, and they trust in your professional expertise to bridge the gap between this world and the next. You lean against a heavy stone pillar, letting its coolness seep into your shoulder. From this vantage point, you can see the entire length of the main hall. It is a choreographed dance of industry. You see a young apprentice carefully sorting through a basket of onions and lichen, used to pad out the wrappings and give the mummy a lifelike shape. You see an older man, his eyes clouded with cataracts but his hands still sure, carving a wooden coffin lid with a bronze adze. The sound of the mallet on wood is a steady, heartbeat-like thud. Thud, thud, punctuating the low murmur of the workers. This is the business of eternity. It is a trade built on the universal human fear of being forgotten and the deep-seated Egyptian hope that the soul can indeed live forever if the physical vessel is maintained. You realize that for every king who commissions a pyramid, there are thousands of ordinary people who save their entire lives just to afford a decent mummification and a small niche in a communal tomb. Their copper rings and modest linen bundles are just as important to the economy of Saqqara as the gold and lapis lazuli of the pharaohs. As the afternoon light begins to shift, casting long, slanted shadows across the workshop floor, you feel a sense of profound responsibility. You are the keeper of the gate. You are the one who ensures that the merchant gets his cedar oil and the widow gets her prayers. The menu of options you provide is not just a price list. It is a map of a society's hopes and its social architecture. You take a deep breath, the air tasting of dust and incense, and push yourself away from the pillar. There is more work to be done. Another client has just arrived at the surface, brought up the long, winding path from the valley on a sled pulled by oxen. You can hear the distant calls of the porters and the jingling of the harness. The business of the dead continues, as it has for 1,000 years, and as it will for 1,000 more, beneath the watchful, silent eye of the desert sun. The smell of stale cedar and old resin clings to the wool of your tunic as you step away from the glare of the desert sun and descend once more into the cool, shadowed depths. Your sandals click softly against the limestone floor, a rhythmic sound that marks your transition from the world of the living to the realm of the silent. You are heading toward the Wabet, the place of purification. It is here that the physical shell is prepared for its long journey, washed in water drawn from the sacred springs and anointed with oils that carry the scent of distant lands. The air in this chamber is different. It is heavy and still, smelling of natron and the sharp medicinal tang of frankincense. You feel the temperature drop as the thick walls of the earth press in around you, providing a natural sanctuary from the blistering heat above. Your hands, calloused from years of handling stone and wood, trace the smooth surface of a limestone basin, and you take a moment to simply breathe, letting the silence of the underground settle into your bones. To your left, a narrow doorway leads into a series of interconnected side chambers, and as you walk through, you are met with a sight that always brings a sense of quiet wonder. This is not the grand, sprawling tomb of a pharaoh or a high-ranking vizier, but a communal resting place, a shared home for those who have finished their earthly labors. Here, the space is utilized with a practical, almost domestic efficiency. The wooden coffins are not laid out in a single row, but are stacked vertically, reaching toward the ceiling in neat, orderly tiers. You look up at the dark grain of the sycamore and cedar, noting how the weight of the years has pressed them together. There is a strange beauty in this vertical storage, a testament to the sheer number of souls who have passed through your hands. It feels less like a warehouse and more like a library, where each sarcophagus is a volume containing the story of a life, shelved away in the quiet dark to be read by the gods. You walk along the rows, your fingers brushing against the painted eyes on the sides of the coffins. These eyes are meant to allow the deceased to look out into the chamber, to see the offerings left for them and to watch the passage of time. As you move, you realize that you are walking past a cross-section of society. In one corner, a coffin of fine imported wood is decorated with vibrant blues and golds, its inscriptions carved with the precision of a master scribe. Beside it, however, rests a much simpler box, a plain, sturdy construction of local timber, perhaps belonging to a baker, a weaver, or a farmer. In this subterranean city, the distinctions of the surface begin to blur. The wealthy merchant and the humble labourer rest side by side, stacked in the same limestone cradle, unified by the same rituals and the same hope for the fields of reeds. It is a humbling thought, one that makes the ache in your lower back feel a little lighter. You are the one who ensures that each of them, regardless of their status, is given the proper care, that each body is wrapped with equal attention to the sacred geometry of the linen. The stacked sarcophagi possess a quiet dignity that fills the room. Even without the gold leaf and the elaborate murals of the royal tombs, there is a profound sense of peace here. You adjust a lamp on a small wall niche, and the flickering flame casts long dancing shadows across the wood. You see the variations in the craftsmanship, the way one carpenter joined his corners with dovetails, while another used simple wooden pegs. You can almost hear the echoes of the workshops in the city above, the rasp of the saw, the rhythmic thud of the mallet, and the hushed conversations of the men who built these vessels for eternity. Each coffin was a final gift from a family, a vessel of grief and love, lowered down the shaft with ropes and prayers. As you stand in the center of the chamber, surrounded by these silent sentinels, you feel the weight of their collective history. It is a heavy weight, but it is not burdensome. It is the weight of a duty fulfilled, a promise kept to those who can no longer speak for themselves. The diversity of the people buried here is reflected in the small objects left nestled between the stacks: a clay beer jar, a pair of worn leather sandals, a small wooden figurine of a servant. These are the echoes of daily life, tucked into the crevices of the afterlife. You pick up a small, blue-glazed amulet that has slipped from its place and carefully set it back atop a lid. You wonder about the woman who wore it, the streets she walked, and the children she may have held. The communal burial shaft is a tapestry of human experience, woven together in the dark. It reminds you that while the pyramids may reach for the sun, the true heart of the land lies here, in the shared resting places of the many. You feel a deep, slow connection to the earth beneath your feet, as if the very stone of Saqqara is breathing with you, holding the memories of the thousands who have found their way into this cool, eternal embrace. The air in the workshop is thick with a scent that feels both ancient and strangely new, a heavy perfume of cedar and salt that clings to the wool of your tunic. You find yourself standing in a moment of history that feels like a quiet exhale after a long, turbulent breath. It is the era of the 26th and 27th dynasties, a time when the world around Egypt is changing with a dizzying speed, yet here, in the shadow of the step pyramid, you feel a deliberate turning back of the clock. You run your hand along the edge of a limestone vat, feeling the familiar grit of the stone. There is a sense of archaism in the air, a conscious effort by your people to reach back into the deep past, to the glory of the old kingdom, and pull those old ways into the present. You see it in the way the scribes carve the hieroglyphs, mimicking the elegant, elongated styles of ancestors who lived 2,000 years before your birth. It is a cultural renaissance, a slow and steady blossoming of tradition that makes you feel as though you are walking through a living museum. You are part of a generation that looks backward to find its way forward, seeking stability in the rituals of the dead while the political tides of the Mediterranean and the Near East shift like the desert sands. The weight of your tools feels solid in your palms, but the materials you work with tell a story of a world that has grown much larger than the Nile Valley. As you move through the subterranean chambers of the embalming house, your eyes rest on rows of imported ceramic jars, their shapes unfamiliar to the potters of your grandfather's time. You reach out to touch the cool, glazed surface of a vessel that has travelled hundreds of miles across the Great Green Sea. These are not just containers, they are maps of trade and influence. You realize that while you are performing the most sacred and traditional of Egyptian rites, you are doing so with the help of the entire known world. You pick up a small stoppered jar and pull the plug, leaning in to catch the sharp, pine-like aroma of pistacia resin. This substance did not come from the marshes of the Delta or the gardens of Memphis. It was harvested from the terebinth trees of the Levant, carried by merchant ships and camel caravans through the bustling ports of the north. As the scent fills your lungs, you feel a connection to those distant lands, to the rugged hillsides of Canaan and the sun-drenched islands of the Aegean. This resin is precious, a luxury that speaks of Egypt's place at the heart of a vast commercial network. You feel a strange sense of pride in the fact that the preservation of a single soul now requires the cooperation of many nations. The world is opening up, and even here, in the silence of the tomb, you can hear the echoes of the marketplace. The influence of the Persians, the masters of the 27th dynasty, is a subtle presence in your daily life, like a low-frequency hum that you eventually stop noticing, but never truly disappears. You might see a foreign official in the streets of Memphis wearing a heavy embroidered cloak that seems far too warm for the Egyptian sun, or perhaps you notice the new coins beginning to circulate, stamped with images of the great king. Yet down here in the cool earth of Saqqara, the Persian influence feels more like a bridge than a barrier. The empire's vast roads and protected sea lanes have made it easier for you to acquire the exotic oils and spices your work demands. You find yourself using bitumen from the Dead Sea and cedar oil from the mountains of Lebanon with a regularity that would have stunned the embalmers of the past. Your back aches slightly from the hours spent leaning over the embalming tables, a dull, familiar throb that reminds you of the physicality of your devotion. You take a moment to sit on a low wooden stool, letting your eyes adjust to the soft, flickering light of the oil lamps. The shadows dance across the walls, playing over the inscriptions that call upon Anubis to protect the laboratory. In this half-light, the boundaries between the eras seem to blur. You are a man of the 6th century before the Common Era, living in a cosmopolitan world of Greeks, Phoenicians, and Persians, yet your hands are performing the same motions that were perfected during the age of the god-kings. You are the bridge between the ancient and the international. As you prepare a mixture of natron and herbs, you think about the journey these ingredients have taken to reach your workbench. The salt from the Wadi Natrun, the juniper berries from the high plateaus, the frankincense from the distant southern lands of Punt. Each substance carries the essence of its origin, a physical piece of the earth's geography, brought together in this one small room to defy the passage of time. You feel the weight of this responsibility, to take the disparate pieces of the world and use them to create something eternal. The workshop is no longer just a place of labor, it is a crossroads where the wealth of empires is distilled into the service of the spirit. The silence of the laboratory is deep, broken only by the occasional drip of water or the soft scrape of a spatula against stone. You find yourself contemplating the paradox of your time. Egypt is no longer the isolated, impenetrable kingdom it once was. It is a jewel in a larger imperial crown, a hub of a global economy. And yet, the more the world changes outside, the more fiercely you cling to the rituals within. The archaism of your era is not a refusal to grow, but a way to anchor yourself in an age of uncertainty. By imitating the old kingdom, you are claiming a lineage that no foreign king can take away. You are weaving the new threads of international trade into the ancient loom of Egyptian belief. You stand up, your joints popping softly in the quiet air, and walk toward the entrance of the shaft, where the evening breeze begins to filter down. The air is cooler now, carrying the faint smell of wood smoke from the nearby village where families are settling in for their evening meals. You think of the people whose bodies rest in the communal shafts nearby, and you realize that they, too, were part of this global tapestry. A merchant who sold Greek wine, a soldier who served in the Persian garrison, a weaver who used flax grown in the delta. They all come to you in the end, and you treat them all with the same resins from the north and the same salts from the west. In this moment of reflection, you feel a profound sense of peace. The complexity of the Saite-Persian world, with its shifting borders and blending cultures, finds its resolution here, in the steady, rhythmic work of the embalmer. You are the guardian of the transition, the one who ensures that no matter how much the world above might change, the journey below remains constant. You look down at your hands, stained with the dark oils of your trade, and you see the history of your people written in the creases of your skin, a history that is being rewritten every day with every new jar of resin that arrives from across the sea. The workshop is a microcosm of the world, a hidden laboratory where the past and the future meet in the quiet dark of the Saqqara plateau. The scent of cedar oil never truly leaves your skin. It is a deep, resinous perfume that has settled into the very pores of your palms, lingering long after you have scrubbed them with the fine, abrasive sands of the Nile bank. To the people of Memphis, you are a shadow moving through the bright, sun-drenched streets, a man marked by the fragrance of eternity. They step aside when you pass, not out of malice but out of a quiet, trembling reverence. You are the one who bridges the gap between the living and the gods, the one who handles what others fear to touch. Your social standing is a strange, paradoxical thing. You are essential, yet set apart. a necessary ghost in a world of vibrant colour. As you walk across the threshold of the workshop, the air cools instantly, heavy with the minerals of the earth and the sharp, medicinal tang of natron. Your back aches with a familiar, dull throb, a reminder of the hours spent leaning over the stone tables, the repetitive motion of packing the salts, the careful precision required to ensure the skin does not tear. This work is a physical weight you carry, a slow erosion of your own vitality as you preserve the vitality of others. Your joints feel the dampness of the underground chambers, and your eyes, though sharp, often burn from the fine dust of the drying salts. Yet there is a profound rhythm to this exhaustion, a sense that your body is a vessel for a craft that existed long before your grandfather first placed a linen wrap in your small, trembling hands. This life was never a choice you had to make. It was a legacy that flowed through your blood, like the annual inundation of the river. You remember watching your father move with this same deliberate grace, his hands performing the sacred geometry of the incisions with a confidence that seemed born of the gods themselves. You are part of a long, unbroken chain of guardians, a lineage of men who have kept the secrets of the house of embalming for generations. It is a hereditary burden, yes, but it is also a profound comfort. You do not have to wonder who you are or what your purpose might be. Your identity is carved into the very walls of Saqqara, written in the ledger of the dead that your family has maintained since the days of the old kings. The morning begins not with a roar, but with the soft, rhythmic scraping of a bronze spatula against a ceramic jar. You sit on a low wooden stool, the grain of the wood familiar against your thighs, and you take a moment to simply breathe before the heat of the day reaches the lower levels. There is a specific silence here, not a void of sound, but a layering of quietness. You hear the distant, muffled chime of a hammer from the stonemason's camp, the faint rustle of dry papyrus as your scribe prepares the inventory, and the steady, slow drip of water from a cooling jar. In these moments of rest, you are not a priest or a technician. You are simply a man sitting in the cool shade, feeling the weight of the history you serve. The smells of the workshop are complex, shifting like the seasons. There is the base note of the natron, salty, dry, and slightly alkaline, which acts as the foundation for everything else. Over this, you layer the sweetness of myrrh, the sharp clarity of frankincense, and the dark, earthy musk of the bitumen that arrives in heavy black chunks. Sometimes the smell is overwhelming, a thick, cloying cloud that sticks to the back of your throat. But other times, when the proportions are just right and the resins are warming over a small charcoal brazier, the air becomes something heavenly, a scent that seems to lift the heavy stone ceiling and connect the workshop to the stars. Between the stages of the ritual, there are long hours of waiting. The body must rest in the natron for 40 days, a period of profound stillness where the moisture is slowly drawn out, leaving behind the parchment-dry shell of a human being. During these weeks, you find yourself wandering the edges of the plateau, looking out over the green ribbon of the valley toward the white walls of the city. You watch the farmers in their fields and the merchants on the river, and you feel the strange distance between their world of growth and your world of preservation. You are the keeper of the pause, the one who holds time still while the rest of the world rushes toward the horizon. You return to the workshop to find your apprentices resting in the corner, their heads nodding against their chests. You do not wake them. You know the toll this work takes on the young, the way the sight of the transition can unsettle a soul not yet hardened by years of service. You pick up a piece of linen, feeling its coarse texture between your fingers, and begin to tear it into long, even strips. The sound of the fabric rending is sharp and rhythmic, a steady zip, zip, zip that fills the chamber. This is your meditation. The repetition calms the mind, focusing your energy on the simple tactile reality of the cloth. As the afternoon light shifts, casting long amber fingers across the floor, you move to the shelves to check your supplies. Every jar must be accounted for. Every ounce of resin is a precious commodity brought from the far corners of the earth. You run your hand over the smooth, glazed surface of a canopic jar, feeling the cool ceramic against your palm. These are the vessels of the future, the containers that will hold the essence of a life long after the voice has fallen silent. You take pride in the order of your laboratory, in the way the tools are laid out in precise rows, cleaned and ready for the next stage of the journey. And so the day moves in a slow, deliberate circle. You eat a simple meal of bread and onions, sitting on the steps of the workshop, while the wind carries the scent of wood smoke from the nearby village. The smoke curls into your hair, mixing with the cedar and the salt, creating a fragrance that is uniquely yours, the smell of a man who lives between two worlds. You think of the people you have prepared, the faces you have seen in their final, frozen expressions, and you feel a strange kinship with them. They are your silent companions, the residents of your hidden world, and you treat them with a tenderness that few others could understand. The physical ache in your shoulders begins to soften as the evening air cools the stone. You stretch your arms wide, feeling the pull of the muscles, and look up at the darkening sky. The stars are beginning to appear, the same stars that guided the first builders of the pyramids, the same stars that will watch over the people you bury long after you yourself have become a memory. This thought does not sadden you. Rather, it brings a sense of profound peace. You are part of something vast and enduring, a cycle that is as certain as the rising of the sun and the flooding of the river. As you prepare to close the heavy wooden doors of the laboratory, you take one last look at the tables. The shadows have lengthened, turning the stone into dark islands in a sea of twilight. The work is never truly finished, but for today it is enough. You turn the key in the lock, the metal cold and solid in your hand, and begin the walk back to your home. The sand shifts beneath your feet, a soft, whispering sound that follows you through the dunes. You carry the weight of the day with a quiet dignity, knowing that tomorrow the resins will be waiting, the salts will be ready, and you will once again step into the cool, fragrant dark to continue the work of the gods. The tip of a reed pen is a delicate thing, frayed just enough to hold a bead of soot-black ink, but firm enough to leave a mark that will outlast the person who made it. You sit in the quiet of the late evening, the oil lamp on your table casting a long, flickering shadow against the mud-brick wall. The air in your small room still carries the faint, lingering scent of cedar and bitumen, a perfume that has become a second skin to you. As you reach for a shard of pottery, a simple ostrakon, you feel the familiar texture of the baked clay, rough and cool against your thumb. This is where your memory lives. This is how you ensure that the complex alchemy of the workshop is never lost to the fog of a tired mind. You begin to write, the movements of your hand practiced and fluid. You are not carving formal, monumental hieroglyphs into stone. There is no time for the stiff elegance of temple walls here. Instead, you use hieratic, the flowing cursive script of the living. It is a shorthand of necessity, a script that breathes with the pace of your own heartbeat. As the ink flows onto the surface of a wide-mouthed jar, you record the instructions for the coming days. You write of the Safet oil, your hand tracing the characters for that sacred ointment, with a specific kind of reverence. You know its weight, its viscosity, and the way it clings to the linen bandages, turning them into a translucent amber shell. To anyone else, these marks might look like a tumble of abstract lines, but to you, they are a voice. They are a map of the senses. The handwriting is uniquely yours, yet it reflects a broader truth about the world you move in. You and the others in the workshop are not merely labourers. You are literate, skilled, and deeply specialized. As you label each vessel, naming the antiu resin or the hessite fat, you are participating in a tradition of precision. There is a quiet pride in the way you loop your characters, a sign of a mind that is as sharp as the bronze scalpels used in the mummification chamber. You realize, as the ink dries, that these jars will be the only witnesses to the secrets you keep. You are writing a manual for the afterlife, a set of recipes for eternity, scrawled on the side of a humble pot. It is a direct connection, a bridge built of ink and clay that stretches from your hand into the distant future. You pause for a moment, rubbing the bridge of your nose where a dull ache has begun to settle. The silence of the night is absolute, broken only by the occasional crackle of the lamp. You look at the word Sefet again. It is more than just a name, it is a promise. It represents the 7 sacred oils that restore the senses to the deceased, the fluids that allow the eyes to see and the ears to hear in the kingdom of Osiris. By labeling these jars so clearly, you are ensuring that no mistakes are made in the heat and pressure of the day. You are the guardian of the process. If a subordinate reaches for a jar in the dim light of the embalming house, your handwriting will guide their hand. It is a form of presence that remains even when you are not physically in the room. There is a strange intimacy in this act of writing. You feel as though you are speaking to someone who hasn't been born yet, or perhaps to the gods themselves. The script is hurried but confident, the marks of a person who has no doubt about the importance of their work. You describe the mixtures, 3 parts of this, a measure of that, and as you do, the physical sensations of the day return to you. You remember the stickiness of the resin between your fingers, and the way the fine, white powder of the natron salt stings the small cuts on your palms. The text is a sensory record as much as a technical one. It captures the essence of the laboratory, the slow, methodical pace of a transformation that takes 70 days to complete. As you finish the last jar, you set the reed pen down and stretch your fingers, feeling the joints pop in the stillness. Your back aches from leaning over the table, a steady rhythmic thrum of fatigue that reminds you of the hours you spent standing over the embalming table. But looking at the rows of labelled pottery, you feel a sense of order. The chaos of the world outside, with its politics and its changing seasons, does not penetrate this room. Here, everything is defined. Everything has a name and a purpose. The Sefet oil is where it should be. The instructions are clear. You have translated the mysteries of the divine into the practical language of the workshop, bridging the gap between the holy and the mundane with a few strokes of black ink. The handwriting reveals the humanity of the staff, the little flourishes, the occasional smudge where a thumb pressed too hard, the way the lines start to slant as the writer grows weary. It is a reminder that the great works of Egypt were not built by nameless shadows, but by people like you, who felt the cold of the night and the weight of their responsibilities. You lean back in your chair, watching the shadows dance on the ceiling. The text on the pottery is a living thing. It is the sound of a voice echoing through a corridor of time. It tells of a culture that valued the specific, the tangible, and the carefully preserved. You pick up one of the smaller flasks, turning it over to read the side. Here you have written the specific day of the process when this oil must be applied. It is the 35th day, the midpoint of the journey. You can almost feel the texture of the linen in your hands as you imagine the wrapping ceremony. The script is a guide for the ritual, a script for a play where the stakes are nothing less than immortality. You realize that without these labels, the knowledge would evaporate like the scent of the oils in the sun. The writing is the anchor. It holds the tradition in place, preventing it from drifting away into forgetfulness. The oil in your lamp is running low, the flame dipping and rising as it nears the end of its life. You decide it is time to rest. You gather the ostraca and the jars, placing them carefully in the corner where they will be collected in the morning. Your mind feels lighter now that the instructions are out of your head and onto the clay. You have unburdened yourself of the technical details, leaving room for sleep to take hold. As you blow out the lamp, The smell of charred wick fills the room, sharp and fleeting. You move through the dark with the confidence of someone who knows their space perfectly, your feet finding the familiar path to your sleeping mat. The world outside is vast and silent, the desert stars bright and cold above the plateau of Saqqara. But inside your mind, the ink is still wet. The names of the oils, Sefet, Antiu, Hesai, repeat like a mantra, a rhythmic pulse that lulls you towards slumber. You are a part of a long line of scribes and healers, a chain of knowledge that stretches back to the beginning of time. Your handwriting is your signature on history, a quiet testament to a life spent in service of the eternal. As you pull the linen sheet up to your chin, you feel the slow, steady pull of the earth, the same earth that provided the clay for your jars and the salts for your work. You are tired, but it is a good tiredness, the kind that comes from a day where every action had meaning, and every word written was a step toward the light of the coming dawn. The images of the workshop begin to blur and soften in your mind's eye. The sharp edges of the pottery become rounded, the black ink fades into the deep indigo of the night sky. You are no longer the embalmer, the scribe, or the guardian. You are simply a soul at rest, drifting on the tide of a history that you helped to write. The whispers of the hieratic script fade into the sound of your own breathing, slow and measured, as you sink deeper into the cool, dark embrace of sleep. The instructions are finished. The jars are ready. The work is held in the safe keeping of the clay, waiting for the sun to rise once more over the sands of the west. The smell of cedar oil lingers in the creases of your palms, a scent so deep and resinous that it seems to have seeped into your very marrow, a permanent reminder of the work you have done beneath the earth. You sit for a moment on a low stool, carved from sycamore wood, watching the way the oil catches the dim light of a single oil lamp, turning your skin to the color of polished amber. The silence of the workshop is not a hollow thing. It is heavy and thick, like the linens you have spent the day folding and layering. You feel the weight of your own limbs, the slow pulse of blood in your fingertips, and the quiet ache in your shoulders that comes from hours of meticulous labor. It is a weary satisfaction, the kind that settles over a man when he knows he has built something intended to outlast the wind and the shifting dunes. You reach out to touch the surface of a nearby sarcophagus, the wood cool and smooth beneath your hand, and you think of the name that is carved there in deep, rhythmic strokes. In this quiet hour, you understand that your work is not merely about the preservation of flesh, but the preservation of a sound. There is an ancient truth you carry with you, one that guides every cut of the flint knife and every drop of natron. To speak the name of the dead is to make them live again. You realize that as long as that name remains legible, as long as it can be whispered by a priest or read by a passing traveler, the soul of the man you have prepared will never truly vanish into the dark. You are the guardian of that echo. You are the one who ensures that the vibration of a human life continues to ripple through the air of the living world long after the lungs that first breathed it have turned to dust. As you sit there, the flickering lamp casts long dancing shadows against the limestone walls, and you think of the car. It is a strange and beautiful thing to contemplate, this twin of the soul, this vital spark that requires a home. You know that the car cannot wander through the eternal fields of reeds if it has no place to return to, no physical anchor to hold it to the memory of who it was. Your hands, calloused and stained with the dyes of your trade, have built that anchor. You have transformed a frail, temporary body into a vessel of stone and resin, a permanent statue of flesh that can withstand the weight of centuries. It is a heavy responsibility, feeling the bridge between the physical remains and the eternal soul resting on your tired shoulders, but it is a burden you carry with a quiet, steady pride. Eventually you stand, your sandals whispering against the stone floor as you move toward the farthest corner of the laboratory. This is the space known as the House of Gold. It is not a place of wealth in the way a merchant might understand it, but a place of finality and radiance. Here the air feels different, thinner perhaps, or more charged with the significance of what is about to happen. This is where the final touches are applied, where the mask is fitted, and where the transition from the mundane to the divine is completed. You pick up a small, fine-haired brush and a jar of gold leaf, the metal so thin that it flutters like a moth's wing at the slightest movement of your breath. You lean over the face of the inner coffin, your movements slowing until they match the rhythm of your heartbeat. With a delicacy that seems impossible for hands that have spent the day hauling heavy jars of salt, you begin to apply the gold. It clings to the wood, smoothing over the features of the deceased, turning the closed eyes and the silent mouth into a shimmering, eternal visage. As the gold spreads, the face before you ceases to be that of a man who grew old and tired. It becomes the face of a god, reflecting a light that does not come from the sun. You are gilding the threshold of eternity. Each stroke of the brush is a prayer, a way of saying that this person mattered, that their story is worth protecting, and that death is not an end, but a transformation into something luminous. The House of Gold is where you bridge the gap between what was and what will be. You watch as the flickering light hits the newly gilded surface, and for a moment it feels as though the room is filled with a warmth that has nothing to do with the temperature of the air. You think of how the soul, the bar, might look down upon this work and find it pleasing. You are creating a map for the spirit to follow, a beacon that will shine in the darkness of the underworld. The physical remains you have tended to are no longer just bone and skin. They have become a sacred architecture, a temple for the spirit to inhabit. You feel the profound stillness of the room, a silence that feels like held breath, as if the very walls are waiting for the final word to be spoken. Your back aches as you straighten up, and you take a slow, deep breath, tasting the salt and the dry, ancient dust of the workshop. The work is nearly finished. The bridge is built. You look at the jars lined up on the shelf, their lids carved in the likeness of the 4 sons of Horus, watching over the internal organs with stony, unblinking eyes. You have done your part to ensure that the physical vessel is ready for the long journey ahead. You have secured the name, you have housed the car, and you have dressed the body in the radiance of the House of Gold. As you prepare to leave the workshop for the night, you extinguish the lamp, watching as the glow fades from the gold leaf until only a faint, ghostly shimmer remains in the dark. You walk toward the stairs that lead back to the surface, your footsteps heavy and rhythmic. With each step, you feel the transition from the world of the dead back to the world of the living. The air changes, becoming cooler and fresher as you emerge into the starlight of the Saqqara plateau. The great pyramid of Djoser looms in the distance, a silent mountain of stone under the velvet sky, a reminder of the thousands of others who have walked this path before you. You wrap your wool cloak tightly around your chest, shielding yourself from the desert wind that carries the scent of dry grass and distant wood smoke. Your mind is quiet now, the frantic details of the day's labor smoothed over by the vastness of the night. You think of the names you have spoken today, the lives you have touched with your hands, and the way those lives now rest securely in the embrace of the earth. You are a small part of a grand unfolding story, a single weaver in a tapestry that stretches back to the beginning of time and forward into a future you will never see. And yet, you are content. The sand crunches softly under your feet as you walk toward your small home on the edge of the necropolis. The stars above are bright and steady, the same stars that the soul you just prepared will soon be navigating. You feel a sense of kinship with the sky, a feeling that the boundaries between the earth and the heavens are thinner than they seem. You are tired, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that feels like a heavy blanket, but it is a peaceful weight. You know that when you close your eyes tonight, your own car will find rest. bolstered by the knowledge that you have fulfilled your duty to the ancestors and to the gods. Inside your home, the embers of a small fire glow in the hearth, casting a soft red light across the simple furnishings. You sit for a moment, listening to the wind whistle through the reeds of the roof, a sound as old as the river itself. You wash the last traces of the workshop from your hands, the water cool and clearing, and you feel the final remnants of the day's tension dissolve. You are no longer the embalmer, the guardian of the house of gold. You are simply a man, ready for sleep, drifting toward the same eternal silence you have spent your life protecting. The memory of the gold, the scent of the cedar, and the weight of the stone all fade into the background, leaving only the steady, calming rhythm of your own breath as you prepare to cross the threshold of dreams. The silence of the desert is not a void, but a weight, a heavy, velvet presence that settles over your shoulders as you step out from the shadows of the workshop and into the cool, starlit air of the Saqqara plateau. You feel the fine, powdery dust of the limestone beneath your feet, a texture so soft it mimics the feel of silk, yet you know it is the very substance that has held the world together for 3,000 years. The heat of the day has retreated into the earth, leaving behind a crisp, thin chill that makes you pull your linen shawl tighter around your chest. Your muscles, weary from the hours of bending over the embalming tables and the meticulous application of resins, begin to loosen in this vast openness. Here, under the watchful gaze of the step pyramid, you realize that you are standing upon a landscape that does not merely contain history, it breathes it. The sand is your greatest ally and your most faithful guardian. You look down at the ground, noticing how the wind has already begun to ripple the surface of the dunes, erasing the footprints you made only hours before. This dry, scorched earth possesses a singular, patient power. It sips the moisture from the air and the soil, creating a sanctuary where time itself seems to hesitate. You think of the linen-wrapped forms you have just laid to rest in the deep shafts below, how the parched environment will cradle them, turning their skin to the color of dark honey and preserving the very lines of their faces for an eternity you can hardly imagine. It is a strange comfort to know that in this place nothing is truly lost. The desert does not destroy, it hides. It gathers the stories of the craftsmen, the priests, and the silent sleepers, tucking them away beneath layers of amber grit where the dampness of the world cannot reach them. As you walk slowly toward the edge of the necropolis, the scent of wood smoke from a distant watchman's fire drifts toward you, mingling with the faint, lingering aroma of frankincense that clings to your skin. You feel a profound sense of continuity, a tether that connects your hands to the hands of those who worked these sands 1,000 years before you, and to those who will surely come long after your own name has faded. You understand that you are part of an ongoing conversation between the living and the dead, a dialogue written in stone and salt. The excavations never truly end. They merely pause, waiting for the next generation to find the courage to dig a little deeper, to brush away the dust from a forgotten doorway, and to listen to the echoes of the House of Gold. There is a deep, quiet respect that settles in your heart as you look out over the undulating horizon. You see the mounds of debris and the half-buried remains of temples, and you realize that for every secret you have uncovered today, the desert holds 1,000 more in its silent embrace. It is a promise of discovery that never diminishes. You can feel the potential humming beneath the soles of your sandals, the unopened chambers, the sealed jars of oils, the papyrus scrolls waiting to be read by eyes not yet born. This land is a library of the soul, and you are merely one of its many librarians, tending to the shelves for a brief, flickering moment in the great span of ages. The timelessness of the desert acts as a shield against the frantic pace of the world beyond the dunes. Out there, kingdoms may rise and fall, and the names of kings may be carved and then chiseled away. But here, the rhythm is dictated by the slow shift of the stars and the gradual accumulation of the sand. You find yourself slowing your pace to match that rhythm. Your breath becomes long and steady, drawing in the stillness of the night. You aren't just an embalmer or a worker in the laboratory. You are a witness to the endurance of the human spirit. You feel a strange kinship with the future, a sense that those who will eventually walk these paths and sift through these sands will do so with the same reverence you feel tonight. They will touch the same stones, squint against the same sun, and wonder about the lives of those who sought to conquer death with such beautiful, desperate care. The ache in your back, the result of leaning over the stone vats of natron, begins to fade into a dull, rhythmic thrum that reminds you of your own vitality. You are alive in a city of the dead, yet you have never felt more connected to the essence of being. The desert is not a place of endings, but a place of preservation, a vast golden vessel designed to carry the essence of a civilization across the ocean of time. As you look up at the moon, which hangs like a silver coin over the necropolis, you realize that the work you do is a form of love, a way of ensuring that the people you have cared for are never truly forgotten, even when their names are no longer spoken aloud. You think of the future archaeologists, though you do not have a word for them. You imagine them as shadows in the distance, people who will approach this sacred ground with silver tools and curious hearts. You hope they will feel the warmth that still radiates from the stones at night. You hope they will understand the precision of your measurements and the devotion in your prayers. Most of all, you hope they will recognize the humanity that binds you to them, the shared desire to hold on to what is precious, to protect the memory of a face, and to find meaning in the transition from one world to the next. The desert ensures that this connection remains unbroken. It is the great guardian, the tireless sentinel that keeps watch over the laboratory of the dead while the rest of the world sleeps. As you reach the threshold of your own dwelling, you pause one last time to look back at the silhouettes of the pyramids against the deep indigo sky. They look like anchors, holding the earth steady against the turning of the heavens. The legacy of Saqqara is not found in the gold or the jewels, but in the enduring silence that follows the work. It is in the way the wind whispers through the columns of the funerary complex, and the way the sand settles back into place after a storm, as if it were smoothing a blanket over a sleeping child. You feel a deep, settling peace. The weight of the day has been transformed into a sense of purpose, a knowledge that you have played your part in a story that has no end. The dry air touches your face like a cool hand, and you find yourself drifting into a state of quiet contemplation. The boundaries between the past, the present, and the future seem to blur in the moonlight. You are here, and you have always been here, and you will always be a part of this landscape. The desert has claimed you, just as it has claimed the kings and the commoners, not as a victim, but as a treasure to be kept. Your breath slows even further, sinking with the vast rhythmic pulse of the earth. The scents of cedar and bitumen are faint now, replaced by the clean, neutral smell of the cold sand. You are ready to surrender to the night, knowing that the desert will keep watch over your work and your rest, just as it has done for 10,000 years, and just as it will do for 10,000 more. The sands are shifting, ever so slightly, settling into the cracks and crevices of the world, ensuring that when the sun rises again, the mysteries of Saqqara will remain safe, nestled deep within the heart of the timeless waste. The copper key feels heavy and cold in your palm, its surface worn smooth by the oils of your skin and the countless times you have turned it in the lock. You pull the heavy cedar doors closed, and the sound of wood meeting stone echoes through the empty chambers of the workshop, a deep, resonant thud that seems to vibrate in the very marrow of your bones. Your back aches with a dull, familiar throb from hours spent leaning over the embalming tables, and your fingers are stiff, stained faintly with the yellow hue of resin that no amount of scrubbing can truly wash away. You pull your thick wool cloak tighter around your shoulders to ward off the sudden chill of the evening air, and the scent of wood smoke from the nearby workers' village clings to the fibres of the cloth, mixing with the lingering, medicinal sharpness of cedar oil in your hair. As you step away from the entrance, the silence of the plateau begins to settle over you like a soft, heavy blanket. The bustling activity of the day, the shouting of the stonecutters, the rhythmic clinking of chisels, and the constant shuffling of feet over limestone has faded into a profound and ancient stillness. You walk slowly, your leather sandals crunching softly on the wind-swept grit, passing the towering silhouettes of the pyramids that rise like jagged mountains against the deepening violet of the sky. The light is changing now, losing its golden heat and turning into a pale, ghostly silver that softens the harsh edges of the necropolis. You look back one last time at the hidden entrance to your laboratory, now nothing more than a shadow among shadows, and you feel a quiet sense of satisfaction. The jars are sealed, the linen is tucked away, and the prayers have been whispered into the ears of those who are now embarking on their long journey through the underworld. The horizon is a thin ribbon of burning orange, a final glowing ember before the fire of the day is extinguished. You watch as the sun sinks further, its lower rim touching the edge of the world, and for a moment the entire plateau is bathed in a light so fierce and beautiful it feels as though the gods themselves are walking among the tombs. But the moment is fleeting. The orange fades to a bruised purple, then to a deep, velvety indigo that stretches from the Nile Valley to the furthest reaches of the western desert. The stars are beginning to emerge one by one, blinking into existence with a cold, piercing clarity that makes the sky feel infinitely vast. You find a flat, weather-worn stone near the edge of the ridge and sit for a moment, letting your legs rest and your mind wander. Below you, the valley is a patchwork of dark shadows and flickering lights, where the living are gathering around their hearths. But up here, in the silent city of the dead, there is only the wind and the stars. The air is crisp now, carrying the faint, sweet smell of the river and the damp earth of the fields, a stark contrast to the dry, dusty scent of the tombs. You think of the generations who have stood on this very spot, watching this same sky, and the generations who will come long after your name has been forgotten. There is a strange comfort in this continuity, a realization that your work, however small it may seem in the face of eternity, is a vital link in a chain that stretches back to the beginning of time. You have spent your life preparing others for the afterlife, ensuring that their names and their forms endure, and in doing so, you have become a part of the landscape itself. The sand beneath your feet is not just earth, it is the dust of history, the remains of 1,000 dreams and 1,000 lives, all resting together in the quiet embrace of the desert. The workshop below is returning to its quiet subterranean slumber, the air inside growing still and heavy as the warmth of the day dissipates. The natron pits are silent, the oils are settling in their jars, and the amulets are waiting in the dark for the touch of a hand that will not come until the next dawn. It is a place of transition, a bridge between the world of the living and the realm of Osiris, and as you sit under the stars, you feel as though you are standing on that bridge yourself. The ache in your back begins to soften, replaced by a heavy, peaceful lethargy that pulls at your eyelids. The world is slowing down, the rhythms of the earth syncing with the slow, steady beat of your own heart. The constellation of the Great Bear hangs low over the northern horizon, its familiar shape a guiding light for travellers and souls alike. You trace its path with your eyes, feeling a sense of kinship with the celestial bodies that have watched over Saqqara for 10,000 years. They are the imperishable ones, the stars that never set, and they serve as a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, there is a light that cannot be extinguished. You wrap your cloak more tightly around your knees, drawing in the warmth of your own body, and let out a long, slow breath that mists in the cooling air. The desert is a place of many voices, but tonight it speaks only of peace. As the hours pass, the silence of the necropolis deepens, broken only by the occasional cry of a distant jackal or the soft hiss of sand shifting against a stone wall. It is a sound like a long, drawn-out sigh, the sound of the earth settling into its bed. You think of the faces of the people you have helped today, the quiet dignity of their features as they were prepared for their final rest, and you realize that remembrance is the greatest gift one human can give to another. By preserving their bodies, you are preserving their stories, ensuring that they will always have a place in the memory of the world. And so, the cycle continues, a dance of light and shadow, of life and death, performed on the grandest stage imaginable. You stand up slowly, your joints clicking in the quiet, and begin the walk back toward your own home, toward the warmth of a bed and the soft breathing of your family. The path is familiar, even in the dark, and you move with a steady, unhurried pace. Behind you, the laboratory remains tucked away in the heart of the plateau, a secret treasury of knowledge and devotion, guarded by the silent sentinels of the pyramids. The stars continue their slow rotation overhead, marking the passage of time in a language of light that requires no translation. The peace of the necropolis follows you as you descend toward the valley, a lingering sense of calm that settles into your spirit. You know that when the sun rises again, the work will begin anew. The fires will be lit, and the air will once again be filled with the scent of frankincense and myrrh. But for now, there is only the night, and the profound, enduring rest that comes to those who have labored well. The sands are shifting, ever so slightly, smoothing over the footprints of the day and preparing the world for a new beginning. You feel a deep, resonant connection to the earth beneath you, a sense of belonging that transcends the boundaries of time and space. As you reach the edge of the village, you take one last look back at the high plateau, silhouetted against the starry sky. It looks like a sleeping giant, ancient and wise, cradling the mysteries of the past in its stony arms. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the cool night air, and let the stillness of Saqqara fill you completely. There is no fear here, only the quiet certainty of the desert and the gentle continuity of human remembrance. You are ready for your own rest now, a sleep that is deep and undisturbed, knowing that the world is in good hands and that the stars will keep watch until the dawn. The journey is long, but the destination is peace, a peace that endures under the stars, nestled deep within the heart of the timeless waste.